This is the story of how, starting in 1998, a few dozen residents of Phoenix's Sky Harbor neighborhood came together as the Sky Harbor Neighborhood Association to secure the well-being of themselves, their loved ones, and their neighbors. Since the 1980s, Phoenicians have associated East Van Buren Street with blight and crime, but the area wasn't always this way. One of the earliest settled areas of modern Phoenix, Van Buren Street and surrounding communities have witnessed every stage of the city's history, from the area's agricultural origins, to the highway heyday, to an era of rapid urbanization that brought with it an influx of industrial growth. The Sky Harbor neighborhood, or the SHN, in East Phoenix, Arizona, is bounded on the west by 24th Street, on the east by 32nd Street, on the north by Roosevelt Street, and on the south by Washington Street. The SHN is a majority Latino, working-class community that has faced a variety of challenges over the years, such as a lack of sidewalks, low tree coverage, and a high crime rate. East Van Buren Street, one of the most well-known red light districts in Phoenix, divides the neighborhood in two. In addition, the SHN lacks some key amenities, such as grocery stores, and is considered a food desert by the United States Department of Agriculture. There is also a high presence of industry in the area. The Hohokam, an ancient indigenous people, lived in the same area as the SHN for hundreds of years until they left in 1450 CE. They built an extensive canal system that would be re-excavated hundreds of years later by Anglo settlers. Remnants of these canals can still be seen today in the SHN. After the Treaty of Guadalupe granted one-third of Mexico's territory to the U.S. in 1848, Anglo settlers swarmed the territory looking to become wealthy. In the 1860s, several Anglos, including Jack Swilling, who is called the Father of Phoenix, settled the area beginning at what is now 28th Street and Van Buren. The Hohokam canals were reconstructed and the area became agricultural once again. In 1887, the territorial government constructed the State Asylum for the Insane, later renamed the Arizona State Hospital, at 24th Street in Van Buren. Phoenix's residents regarded the asylum as a nuisance and cited it outside of the city limits. Following the completion of Roosevelt Dam and establishment of the Salt River Valley Water Users Association in 1902, the Salt River Valley's irrigation system vastly expanded to serve 250,000 acres of agricultural land surrounding Phoenix. The Salt River Valley and Maricopa canals at this time remained uncovered, contributing important environmental amenities such as shade and recreation. Throughout the early 20th century, cropland was subdivided, in some cases being plotted for residential construction. As home building became a major industry in Phoenix, aided in the 1930s by the Federal Housing Administration subsidies, neighborhoods like the SHN developed rapidly. In addition, commissioned as a thoroughfare for 3 different U.S. highways, Van Buren Street became the gateway to Phoenix. Meanwhile, the Phoenix streetcar line connected to the asylum, providing transportation to the area's residents. Into the post-World War II era, over 150 auto courts and neon-lit motels began to line the Van Buren Strip. New, single-family residential subdivisions sprang up in former cropland north towards McDowell Road. Expanding its boundaries past 32nd Street, the city of Phoenix incorporated the SHN and began to develop the Washington Street corridor for light industrial services catering to the highway, Southern Pacific Railroad, and growing Sky Harbor Airport. Neighborhoods like El Molino between 28th and 30th Street were sandwiched between the thriving Van Buren Motel Strip to the north and warehouses and scrapyards to the south. The canals, retrofitted for urban use, were piped and covered, resulting in the removal of most of the canopy cover lining their banks. The 1960s through the 1980s marked the end of the golden years of tourism in the SHN. The Van Buren corridor declined due to the construction of the I-10 and I-17 freeways in the late 1960s. Van Buren Street gradually lost its status as part of the U.S. highway system, and by the end of the 1970s, many motels and trailer parks catering to tourists became abandoned. Meanwhile, the asylum expanded, increasing its prominence as a disamenity in the neighborhood. The dense canopy cover lining the Grand Canal continued to be removed between 1969 and 1979. By 1997, Phoenix's freeway system dramatically expanded. Van Buren Street, fully decommissioned as a highway in 1992, became a blighted thoroughfare lost amid the sprawl of Phoenix, with most of its motels in a state of decay. Industrial expansion removed the remainder of the area's tree cover. Meanwhile, the growing Washington Airport Center began to clear older neighborhoods near 32nd Street and Van Buren. An aerial photo from 2010 reveals increased fragmentation along the Van Buren corridor. The 202 and I-10 freeways completely cut the neighborhoods off at this point. Many motels have been removed, leaving only urban vacancy in their place. Properties surrounding Randolph Road, the paved-over route of the former Maricopa Canal, remain barren. To conclude, gradual disinvestment in the Van Buren corridor gave way to an area largely characterized by light industrial usage and commercial decay, while not enough attention was given to the needs of the residents in the area. The resulting problems catalyzed the creation of community organizations, including the Sky Harbor Neighborhood Association.
When I first moved in, it was still fairly quiet and nice. There were still some people, on my street anyway, that had been there from the very beginning. There was probably, at least 5 homes that had the original people, and what I mean by original were the ones that moved in when the houses were built. But as they grew older, they began moving out, selling their homes, moving out, and then we had a lot of immigrants moving in at that time and into the 90s. I believe there was a period of time on Van Buren when if you were a woman and you were walking down Van Buren, cars would stop to proposition you because we had so many prostitutes on the street. And so if you happened to be walking, you risked having somebody stop and proposition you. So I believe women just quit walking on Van Buren. And even men had people stop and rob them and beat them up. So it became very unsafe, and I believe it got the name for being very unsafe. You just don't go on Van Buren.
Los baldíos estaban llenos de basura. Los callejones, era un desastre, tiradero. En vez de ir a tirar al dompe, venían a tirar a los callejones aquí. A ellos no les importaban si no fueran de aquí. Los problemas aquí eran muchos, robaban mucho. Incluso al pasar los niños en las escuelas, ahí estaban las mujeres ahí en la esquina. A ellas no les importaba si había niños o no había niños.
I didn't feel proud of the area that I lived in because it didn't seem too clean. And again, that's the era or the time where there was drugs, prostitution, and all that. And I didn't see a lot of people really involved in making those changes, so I felt kind of disappointed.
I mean, it was old, before all these new projects and these restoration things from the city. A lot of this wasn't the same.
What made me so angry was to see that the children in the neighborhood and my children see all these sex acts on the streets and alleys, and see the condoms when they walk to school. That's what made me so upset. And then there was drugs in different houses in the neighborhood. And we see them even using the drugs. And that's when when we started having the meetings here in the house, and we contacted the police department. And then we started to go to the Black Watch meetings, and then we came Black Watch Association. In 1998. Yeah, a year before I started going to one of the other associations, Medora Moore, and that's when I found out that there was these meetings, and she was the one that I started asking questions, and she helped me. So in 1998 is when we came, the Sky Harbor Association. It was me. I started to talk to the neighbors because I was very tired and upset of seeing all these things happening in the community, and I got so angry when I see my kids seeing all these things on the streets. And I was the one, and I noticed that some of the neighbors even told me, you're not going to accomplish anything, you don't even speak English well, nothing's going to happen. And you know what, when they told me that, I felt so bad, but I keep walking, and I said, you know what, maybe not, but I had to try.
Oh, yo conocí a la señora Hilaria porque ella empezó la comunidad y pasó a invitarnos y empecé a ir a los meetings. Me gustó el modo en que trabajó la señora Hilaria porque se involucró mucho en la comunidad, porque había aquí muchas drogadicción, prostitución, muy peligroso este barrio en los 90.
At the same time, we were trying to clean the prostitution here, and then some drug houses that we had. So we were doing all that. We have our CAO coming, the police officers that start working with us. And we start having meetings at St. Mark's. Medora Moore was the president of Bumbaloo Heights Association. And her area is from 20th Street to 24, and from Washington to Roosevelt. She accepted me because I insisted a lot until, after a few meetings, I started saying, you know what, I don't have experience, I need help. And then she started saying, okay, then let's start going patrolling. This is what you're gonna have to do in your neighborhood. When we had the meetings, I asked him who wanted to start, patrolling. I had to do it before, so I can tell him how it was. So I did. I took the class, and then I came and I say, it's exciting. We can go patrolling. We can see whatever we see, like graffiti. That's we put that in the report, and we send this report to the police department, and they look at it. And if we see abandoned houses, we have to write that too. If we see suspicious people, we write that too. Anything we see, and we call the police, and then we put it on the report. So I guess it was one of the things that helped us clean the community too, because we did this report every time that we patrol the community. Well, I expected to do some change. I was not expecting a whole lot. I was expecting at least to clean and move all the bad individuals from this community. That's it. The prostitutes, the drug dealers, and knowing that somebody was patrolling, some of them they like it. Most of them didn't like it when we patrol the community. Our streets, if you see the streets, we had a lot of dirt. Our streets were not completely paved. Councilman Johnson was elected, so we went to his office and we showed him all the things that were happening in our neighborhood, and then how our streets look. And then when we went over there already, we applied for this street moderation. There's a program that's given by the city when they take the taxes from the tobacco, and it was something different, but they call them street moderations. And they give us, I think it was $1,000. So when we went and applied, we already have this money. So we applied to the city of Phoenix. It was CDBG program. And then we were very happy to find out later that, yeah, we got the money to fix the streets and the sidewalks from this area, just 28th Street to 30th Street and Monroe and Adams.
Hacía peticiones al Estado o a las personas indicadas en el city para pedir el alumbramiento. Pusieron alumbramientos, mejoraron las calles, pasaron la línea de agua que estaba en los callejones, la pasaron aquí enfrente, pusieron nuevos pavimentos.
Just recently we got our streets repaved and new sidewalks. So it's been coming along throughout the years, but I guess all you can say is that the appearance has changed.
One of the biggest changes that I've seen is the street level. It used to not be as clean as it was. They didn't used to have like the sewage area, or so it used to be bad. And even though again I see people see this as little like inconveniences of the time frame when they were doing that, like, oh well, I can't get around to my house, it's all dirt right now, and they're doing all of this construction. The fact is that after a while you get a very good looking neighborhood, and you can travel easier, and just you feel more proud of the area. It's important for a lot of things, really. With the group that I went to Guadalupe, I sort of told them it's sort of, people may see it as symbolic or whatever, but you want to see that the streets are clean and people feel comfortable in their own neighborhoods.
When the drug dealers move into a neighborhood, that's what they see. This neighborhood doesn't care. Look at all this mess they have. And one of the things is that let's start cleaning our neighborhood, let's start feeling proud of where we live. The cleanups have started since we started the association. I think the first year we had a cleanup, and then in 2000, I think it was 2000, we had a huge neighborhood cleanup, and we had pictures that it was bad, because the neighborhood was bad. And we got an award from the city of Phoenix, 2001, for the cleanup and everything that we were doing. Well, the first cleanup, I know that we found a lot of needles, and that's why we wanted to clean, because there was needles on the alleys and the streets, and that's the first thing that we wanted to clean. Yeah, we felt it was tiring, but we felt good after we cleaned.
Del año aquí para la comunidad, donde se juntan todos los vecinos, toda la comunidad. Hay comida, juegos, viene la policía, cierra una calle, se divierten los niños y es bonito ahora.
They had a game event, and they block off the streets. They invite all the local neighbors to come together to enjoy food, to get to know each other, kind of build a relationship with law enforcement.
Well, like I said, it was like I was young, so I'd always just go with my mom, because I'd get home from school and then she'd like, let's go, we gotta go to a meeting. So I'd go mostly for the food. And then as the years went by, they wanted us to start an organization. So essentially they got all the kids that were in the neighborhood at the time. To me, it was like a Boys and Girls Club type thing, instead of like an actual organization. Since we were young, and then we were mostly following the direction of Hilaria, so we would help her out with whatever she would ask us to do. And then we got a lot of different activities going. Like we were a part of a baseball team, that one of our neighbors was like coaching, you tend to stay away from like bad influences and stuff like that. And everybody gets along, I guess, better once they start coming together.
We had some CPR for them, and then they did cleanups, and they have their own club. They did have their own club. They got meetings. They had meetings. I think it was every month, and they had a Halloween party here in the backyard. Yeah, so they organized, and they have their own. They had their own events. When we met Commander Klima, we invited him to one of the meetings. When he heard the stories that our children had seen, I think that's when he said we had to do something about it. And then he did. The first project was Corner Pocket, and then Corner Pocket was they were arresting the Johns and the prostitutes. And when they started arresting the prostitutes, the same thing happened. The judge let them go until Stephen Gomez, he was a prosecutor. He started working with us, and he said, "You're gonna have to start going to in front of the judges when they arrest these prostitutes, so the judge can hear what you guys going through, when they go through your neighborhood doing all this." When we had the meetings, they called the police every time they saw one, even the children. Because we had the meetings, the association meetings, and we talk about it, and our CAO told them, you have to call, keep calling. And that's how, all of us did. All of us worked together, different ways, but we did. It took us about a year. But after that, we noticed that, the prostitutes, stopped coming over here. They did.
Llamamos mucho a la policía. Lo que veíamos, todo eso, hacíamos reportes. Cuando íbamos al meeting, ahí entregamos los reportes, todo eso.
And there were some children too. They wanted a park because there was nothing here. We didn't have nothing. There was no place to go. They play in the streets, and then we have about 2 accidents on the streets. On 28th Street, one of the guys that was picking up prostitutes ran over one of the children, and then there was one in Adams too. So that's when we started saying, and it came from the youth group. They say we want a park. Let's start talking to Councilman Johnson about a park. When he was working in his campaign, there was a dentist here on 32nd Street. So it was one of his places that he was going to stop by and talk about his election. And there's all of the Sky Harbor members went over there, and we met with him. And then the teen group went too. That's when they asked. They said, "We help you in your campaign if you help us build a park." It was in 2005 when we applied we talked to Councilman Johnson, and he said, well, there was a bond that was going to pass, and he said, why don't you apply? And we applied for funds. And then we did. And it was approved. So it took us about how many years? 2005. It was a long time. So we finally got it this year.
It's a beautiful asset for any neighborhood, I guess, because it just gives everybody a chance to go somewhere and not just be locked up inside your house, watching TV all day. Because I take care of kids myself, so I've had a lot of training in terms of their development is a lot when they interact with other kids. So this kind of helps them have pretty much an escape to where they can go play in the park, maybe meet neighbors' kids, and then develop friendships, develop their social skills, and pretty much any other skills they might need.
Hilaria pidió el parque, lo hicieron el parque aquí cerca de mi casa. Ahí van a jugar mis nietos y se sienten seguros a como estaban antes.
I feel more optimistic about the group because of the accomplishments that it's had, like this part. Unfortunately, in other groups that I work with, it hasn't been that way. You have good ideas, a lot of people coming together, a lot of bright ideas, and everybody wants to get involved, but after a while people lose interest, the group becomes smaller and smaller, and then nothing happens. So for this group, it's more optimistic, more just glad that there are folks that continue to continuously work in the neighborhood.
Pues nosotros creíamos que no iba a ser fácil cambiar esta comunidad a como estaba antes, pero sin embargo la fuerza hace la unión, y uniéndose las personas se puede hacer muchas cosas.
The crime in the area, I believe, has gone down. It's not something that we, quote, hear a lot of, like our gunshots. I mentioned it in the beginning. In the 90s, we were hearing gunshots all the time. And as we've spoken to people and have encouraged them to call the police when they hear or see anything, I believe that some of the neighbors are more encouraged now than they used to be. Even though they don't come to the meetings, they seem to be calling more often, and we don't hear gunfire like we used to. So to me, that's a good sign.
It's good because, like I said, Doña Hilaria, she keeps fighting for us. She keeps telling us to stay involved. I mean, just because I moved out doesn't mean, it's not my neighborhood no more. I was raised here. There's a lot of memories in the neighborhood itself, and it's a lot of change. And hopefully we keep changing for the better.
Mi seguir yendo a la junta, apoyar al ala para la comunidad y seguir cooperando en todo lo que se pueda cooperar.
Well, hopefully they can establish, an office. Because once you establish an office for an organization like that, your support and everything else just falls into place.
I feel that I have grown a lot as a person, and spiritually more than anything else. Because I learned how to be a better person. I feel proud of us, all the neighbors, and everything we have done. I know that most of the neighbors, the ones that I give we give awards on the game event, they've been here since we started the association. They still are. They still come into the meetings, and I can tell you that I'm happy that I live in this neighborhood because I know most of the neighbors. We know each other, and we need something we can call each other to help. So I would move.
Looking back, various aspects helped the SHNA succeed, including having a strong leader, access to resources, support from the city, and a sense of urgency to make change in the community. Together, the future will continue to be bright.